The United States loves war, and the United States loves to provoke wars. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the last 70 years of United States history. If you disagree with me, well, you're wrong. And they want nothing more than to go to war with China. The United States just confirmed that it is, in fact, sending U.S. warships right now to the heart of Taiwan and the Taiwan Strait, which is something that China said they will absolutely not take lightly. Let me read this headline just a few moments ago. Will China mess with U.S. warships headed for Taiwan Strait? The U.S. has thrown down the gauntlet. A showdown may come in the coming weeks. In the coming weeks, we could be at war if sanity does not prevail. White House and Pentagon spokesman keep insisting, as Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Colin Kahle did on August 14th, just yesterday. He said, what's important for us right now is to make sure that Beijing understands that our forces in the region will continue to operate, to fly, to sail, wherever international waters allow. That includes the Taiwan Strait. And he basically says, we're throwing down the gauntlet. We are coming in.
We're coming into your hood.
Like, this is your backyard. This would be the equivalent of China sending a number of warships
to the Caribbean.
To the Caribbean, or even higher than that. I would even argue, like, you know, hey, right off the coast of Miami, Florida. Like, hey, here we are, right here, right on your back. We would not tolerate that. Again, we have something called the Monroe Doctrine, which is something that James Monroe, President of the United States, enacted, which says nobody in the East can come to the Western Hemisphere and be in our waters. We rule the waters of the Western Hemisphere, thus the United States. It's something we wrote, like it's our own document.
But these are carefully chosen words, right? We will go wherever international waters allows. So it's one of those like, I'm not touching you, but I'm not touching you, right? I'm right here where you don't want me to be, and strong words are coming as a result. But we can be here.
Yeah, we can
right?
be here.
These are the rules.
So now the question is, you know, will China send their own warships?
Yes.
Right? So that this was the response that I was thinking about overnight. And yes, sure enough, we got word before the show that China is flexing its military muscle near Taiwan. The war games, new war games, come in response to the visit of a U.S. congressional delegation to the self-governing land.
Now, just last week, China had put a pause on these military drills for a few days in order to release a white paper to Taiwan saying, this is what we propose. You need to seriously think about this, right? Because we don't want anyone else in this region. I don't know if Taiwan is still taking some time to think it over when someone gives you a marriage proposal, right, like that. But now China has unpaused those military drills now that this continues to escalate.
Well, your boneheads in Congress, I mean, maybe this is why. I mean, your boneheads in Congress just moved us one step closer to war with China. And the reason that China has moved its the reason that China has moved its warships into Taiwan is as a result of the United States sending members of Congress, once again, the Senate, into Taiwan. They're not even hiding anymore. First, it was Nancy Pelosi heading to Taiwan to stir up a hornet's nest. Now, just a few hours ago, another group of senators did it again. It was a surprise trip.
What it is a delegation of 5 senators who are coming in as a group, right? And this is their plane landing. Yeah,
this was their plane landing. So they, again, 5 senators just showing up to Taiwan. Okay, this is and by the way, this is bipartisan this time, so it's not just Nancy Pelosi. But I saw this, I couldn't believe it. Going to Taiwan again, for what purpose? What purpose are we stirring up a hornet's nest?
Well, you know, when your coworker goes somewhere great and they're like, you should go there. It's really fun. And then in the Senate, they must have heard about it in the newsroom, in the lunchroom.
I guess. So this is why now, and we have the official tweet from Taiwan, because at first it was like, did they really just do this? Is this a United States aircraft flying into Taiwan once again? And by the way, all these people were tracking it. But here's the official tweet from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Taiwan. Vice Minister Yui extended the warmest of welcomes to Taiwan's longstanding friend, Senator Markey, and his cross-party delegation, Representative Garamendi, Representative Lowenthal, Representative Don Beyer, Representative Amata. We thank the like-minded United States lawmaker. We thank them for their timely visit and unwavering support. What's timely about this? What's timely about this is you're in the middle of a freaking hurricane right now. And
again, support, though, that not all the Taiwanese people want, right? Taiwanese politicians are happy for this validation, but not all Taiwanese people are.
And so why are they going? Like, this was the question I had, which is like, why? Why are you going here? What is the purpose of this? Again, we still haven't gotten which we'll get to Nancy Pelosi's side of this in a moment, but we still haven't gotten a straight answer from her as to why she went to Taiwan. Other than, well, we'll get to that in a minute. So here's what they said. The 5-member delegation, led by Democratic Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, will meet with President Tsai Ing-wen and other officials, as well as members of the private sector. To discuss shared interests, including reducing tensions in the Taiwan Strait and investments in semiconductors. Oh, I see. So you're going to meet with the president. And the same thing we learned later from Nancy Pelosi, but it was not on her official schedule, that she met with Taiwan semiconductor manufacturers, right? And she met with TSMC.
Well, there may not be an issue with them meeting with, because, you know, the optics of being tough on China are that we want to reduce our dependence on Chinese imports. Right? This is the political line that they want to feed us. Yes, we're going to be tough on China. We want to reduce our dependence on China. And so the idea of moving that business into another place that is not China is maybe a legitimate line, right?
I suppose. But
it's not legitimate if all of them are investors inside of these companies, as we know Nancy Pelosi was.
So let's just be clear about this. You just passed a CHIPS Act. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we just passed a CHIPS Act, which is billions of dollars for semiconductor industry and billions of dollars for these manufacturers in Taiwan to also have additional subsidies and plants inside the United States. So these big tech companies are doing just fine, right? These big tech companies, by the way, have had massive, massive profits. Paul Pelosi Sr. is an investor in, has made $5 million investments in future in stock options within the semiconductor space, right before her visit, which is stunning, and before the CHIPS Act passes. So all of these questions about why are you flying there right now in the middle of this hornet's nest when China just released a white paper last week telling us exactly what their plans are here?
Right.
Why do this? So this coming war with China, it's becoming more and more ominous. And Gordon Chang who says war is coming with the United States and the United States, or with China. And he says the United States won't stand a chance. Listen.
Well, China has already announced military drills, the Eastern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army. I think that it's going to be actually war. And the reason, Henry Kissinger in the Wall Street Journal article said, look, we are on the edge of war with Russia and China. And I actually think that he is right. You were talking about today as marking 1 year after the fall of the Afghan government. Well, 1 year ago today, China issued propaganda saying that when they invaded Taiwan, not if, that when they invaded Taiwan, that the island would fall within hours and the U.S. would not come to help.
That the island would fall in hours and the United States would not come to help. I mean, how are we going to send hundreds of warships to this region, thousands of miles away from the United States?
Right. One or two, the logistics make sense, right? But given the scope of the Chinese military,
1.5 billion people. Like even if we had some sort of an attack, and we were able to use Solomon Islands or some of the other bases that we have there, we were able to, line up our bases in Guam. And I mean, think how devastating this would be. Absolutely devastating. And as we had the soundbite from General McGregor last week. He said, look, they can absorb anything that we throw at them. You'd be a ship of fools to try to attack a fort. That's the thing, right? And so we'd literally have to mount an armada like the likes of D-Day to try to do something at that scale. It's not going to happen. And anything we throw at them, they will absorb. And we are literally playing with fire right now. Now, Henry Kissinger, he did an interview this weekend in the Wall Street Journal, where he lays out why he believes we are at the edge of war with Russia and China on the issues, which he says we partly created. This is Henry Kissinger. There he is. He's 99 years old. He's working on a new book. He says, without any concept of how this is going to end or what it's supposed to lead to. And I'm going to read this now, this quote. He says, this is from the Wall Street Journal piece. On the question of Taiwan, Mr. Kissinger worries that the United States and China are maneuvering towards a crisis. And he counsels steadiness on Washington's part. The policy that was carried out by both parties has produced and allowed the progress of Taiwan into an autonomous democratic entity and has persevered between China and the United States for 50 years, he says. One should be very careful, therefore, in measures that seem to change that basic structure.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of rich, right? Coming from him. And I was surprised at this interview, this sort of like, let's have cooler heads prevail coming from Henry Kissinger. And what he is saying is, look, don't upset this right now. Don't upset this structure. This is a fight that we should not be picking.
Caitlin Johnstone tweeted this on Henry Kissinger because, remember, Henry Kissinger is not only a warmonger, he's a war criminal multiple times over. And I love the sort of normalizing of this guy now. But like we're literally turning to like Henry Kissinger for a, clearer heads prevail.
To be the adult in the room.
Which is kind of, and maybe he's 99 years old. Maybe he's suddenly turning a new page. I don't know.
But this is now what we're seeing from previous warmongers, right? Like that George Bush now is these sort
slips
of
up,
these Freudian confession type things, which are these people who had their days of raging battles, saying it's not all it's cracked up to be. You have to live with yourself later.
So Caitlin Johnstone says this about Henry Kissinger. She says, I don't know about you, but to me, this warning is much, much more ominous coming from a blood-soaked swamp monster than it would be from some anti-imperialist peace activist who was speaking from outside the belly of the imperial machine. This man is a literal war criminal who, as a leading empire manager, helped to unleash unfathomable horrors all around the world, the consequences of which are still being felt today. And he's warning us. He's warning us not to do this. And he loves this stuff. Like this is his, this is like war. Yes, I'm right there. Can I try to foment a coup in some country? Can I bomb a small village?
Again, this is someone with perspective that when you wage wars like this and then have to live with yourself later, it doesn't feel so good.
Do you think he's reformed?
No, I wouldn't say that, but I think that maybe he realizes that this is a bigger fight than he picked. And I mean, China, is there a bigger fight? Presumably Russia, but we're managing to dance around that one.
I know. Let's ask our chat. Do you guys think that he's reformed? That he is now at 99 years old, a reformed war criminal, warmonger, and he's given up that past?
Then why would he say this then? Like to sell a book as like I am now a true North politician or
maybe, I don't know, but he's also, I don't know. At 99 years old, people are saying no in the chat. No, he's no, I don't see it.
So then, I mean, I really did stare at this article for a long time and think, why is the Wall Street Journal publishing this?
Well, they label him a diplomat, which is also laughable, right? So they frame him as a diplomat.
Yeah.
In the same way that they frame, Condoleezza Rice and Madeleine Albright as diplomats. Like they're, unaccountable for all of the horrors that they've brought to the world through their actions, through their invasions, through their coups, through their,
Right. I think that what infuriated me so much is this allowing someone to rebrand themselves as a peaceful voice, right? Like, shouldn't some of these people, that ship has sailed? It's like Sean Spicer on Dancing with the Stars. Like, no rebranding yourself into something that is just like fun and affable. Like some careers should not have that transition. Yeah,
can like Goebbels, come out, or any of these old guys from the Third Reich, and now they're like, well, in hindsight, we don't want to get into these types of wars. I mean, that's the equivalency here. I mean, that's literally the equivalency of this guy. But we normalized him. We call him a diplomat, does the Wall Street Journal. Anyway, another big angle to this, of course, is the Nancy Pelosi side. And so when we're looking at Taiwan, we're looking at China, we're looking at Paul Pelosi Jr. more closely now. We've been staying on this story because I think it's important. When Nancy Pelosi was first elected, she had a net worth of $3 million. There's Nancy Pelosi, and that's Paul Pelosi Jr. behind her on the recent trip to Taiwan. So when she was first elected, she had a net worth of about $3 million. Today, her net worth is over $150 million. Daily Mail article out today about Paul Pelosi Jr.'s Chinese investments. So now this is an interesting piece of this story. Why is Paul Pelosi Jr. a huge investor in Chinese telecom companies, while at the same time his mom, Nancy Pelosi, has been arguing against corporatists and Chinese corporations taking over American government business or American corporations? And so, but it's okay for her son to be investing very heavily in Chinese telecom companies. Despite her campaign, she's been adamant. We've got to get China's corporate influence out of the United States.
And beyond, right? They lobby for Chinese interest out of other nations too.
Right, out of Canada. The United States has pushed Canada to limit the amount of Chinese investment in Vancouver real estate. And so
that absolutely happens in Portugal. It happens in Spain. It happens all over Europe. The embassies there often they belabor the point that too much Chinese investment in your Western nation is going to be a problem for you. You should not allow it.
So, Philip, here you can take the screen here. Nancy Pelosi's son, Paul Pelosi Jr., is the second largest investor in a $22 million Chinese company. Oh, he's the second largest investor. Paul secretly accompanied his mother on her controversial trip to Taiwan last week and met with other top Taiwanese officials. Paul worked for the telecoms companies, Borks Technologies, in a board or consultancy role and was awarded 700,000 shares for his services, making him the fifth and then later the second largest shareholder of this company. His ties to this Chinese firm were just revealed, so the Pelosi campaign has not revealed this information. At the same time, the Pelosi aims to tackle Chinese government aggression abroad and its corporate influence in the United States.
I mean, even if this is benign, right? Even if there's some explanation that we can't see, at the very least, he was on a diplomatic trip on U.S. taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Right.
Well, she, according to her, no, at no expense to U.S. taxpayers.
So he booked his own flight. He wasn't even on the plane.
That we don't know.
He just happened to be in town at the same time as his mother.
Of course. So it says at no additional tax. This according to the Pelosi team, no additional tax expense to the U.S. taxpayer. But you have 8 warplanes taking Nancy Pelosi and her entourage to land in Taipei. So was Paul on a different flight? No, he was on the same flight, which means that taxpayer dollars, $90 million, were used to make sure that that flight landed in Taipei without issue. And then, of course, the new congressional delegation that just landed today, overnight. And again, taxpayer funded.
But also presumably in the room when certain, perhaps classified information was being discussed, or at the very least, private government information.
Sure.
So there are a lot of questions here.
Not presumed. He was there. He was there in photos. He's there, sat at the table. He was there, Paul Pelosi.
Now, remember the rules around Jared Kushner being denied his security clearance initially because he had not disclosed certain investments in certain countries. We cannot have different rules for different parties and their family members. So absolutely, the American taxpayer is due some answers about this.
So Nancy Pelosi still can't give us a straight answer like you want to. Like, if you want an answer,
I do.
I would love an answer. So she was asked, why did you go to Taiwan? First she said, it was a great trip. It was important. Well, why was it important? So that we could go to war with China? Is that why it was important? But no, she has a new answer for exactly why the real reason we went to Taiwan. Take a listen to Nancy Pelosi.
When I was a little girl, I was told at the beach, if I dug a hole deep enough, we would reach China. So we've always felt a connection there.
Oh, okay. I had that same, when I was at the beach growing up, if you dug a hole, you would go to China.
What?
Yeah. Like if you dug a hole deep enough at the beach, you would go to China. Like you'd reach China with your hole. And that's what she said. She said, that's why we have a deep connection to China. So that's why we went, because I was told as a little girl when I would dig a hole, I would reach China.
Okay. Cool.
Thanks, Nancy.